The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Let me just say, after video distorting the belt to proclaim me the real world champion, I'm going to tell y'all with a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life. When you walk around this world and you tell everybody you're number one, the only way you get to stay number one is to be number one.
Hi, everybody. Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. We are live here on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube, and we're powered up, as always, by Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Network of podcasts. I invite you to check out the complete list of podcasts that we have at bellyupsports.com. We got a great group of guys and gals that'll bring you up to date on everything going on in the world of sports and beyond. And, of course, check out all the latest articles that we have at bellyupsports.com. We're brought to you, as always, by Javi Coffee. Instant coffee at its finest. You just take a couple of drops or whatever you want, a teaspoon, hot or cold, however you want it. And we've got it regular decaf, salted caramel, French vanilla. That's my favorite. And make sure you use the promo code Captain Lou for 15% off your purchase at checkout. That is javicoffee.com. And, of course, sponsored by SeatGeek. You want to get tickets to your favorite game? There might be some left for the Big Ten Championship for our Wolverines. Who knows? Down in Indianapolis or the Lions or whoever. Make sure you use the promo code Captain Lou for $20 off your first purchase. Let's bring in a special guest, one of the best that we've got here on Belly Up Sports. You can see him on Sunday mornings, I believe, doing a fantasy cast. If you've got any last-minute fantasy players you need in your lineup with the playoffs coming around the corner, you want to position yourself. My team right now, Kevin, is we're fading fast. We're taking in water big time. But let's welcome in Kevin Wilson. Kevin, thanks for joining us tonight. How are you?
Well, we're doing great here, and it's always a pleasure to join you, Lou. And I'm looking forward to talking some football. Today, and I was thinking that these games, we better relish these games because with the 12-team playoffs, these conference championship games won't mean as much next year. So I'm really looking forward to everything that starts off on Friday night, and we're going to see some good football here.
Oh, my God, we are indeed, and we'll talk about that in a moment. We got to bring up here locally, Michigan and Ohio State. The game, if they want to call it. 19 million people watched it this past Saturday, the highest rated game this year. Michigan in the fourth quarter got the ball and dominated. 7-minute drive. It only resulted in a field goal, but it was enough to make it a 6-point lead. And they've got Ryan Day's number. We all know about the circumstances with Jim Harbaugh and not being there, but boy, what a big win for Michigan. Now, all they got to do is contain Iowa on Saturday night, and they get to go to the playoff again.
Yes, they sure will. And I sure hope that we're done with this whole Jim Harbaugh discussion. I'm sick up to here with that whole thing. And Michigan won the game, so I'll give them plenty of praise for that. But come on, their schedule, it's by far the easiest schedule that any of the teams have that are at the top of the rankings.
Yeah.
And all they had to do is win 2 games to be here where they are. And so good on them for beating Ohio State. And as you say, it's the game. I say the games is Navy and Army.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, because I was in the Navy, but aside from that, this is the game. It was a great game, and so I enjoyed it very much. There's a friend of mine who might be watching. I shared that I was going to be on here tonight. And he's a member of the Ohio State, booster club. And so he didn't enjoy it as much, but it was a good game. And so that's, what I was looking for on any Saturday is good football.
Oh my God, this past weekend was amazing with some of those games. Before we get into them, I got to ask you a question about Ohio State. This rivalry obviously goes back decades and decades. It brings to mind John Cooper. He was a great coach at Ohio State, couldn't beat Michigan. He won 82% of his games, I think, at Ohio State. Ryan Day has now lost 3 straight games to Michigan. It's up to debate how much he had involved in the getting the sign stealing scandal going at Michigan. But boy, he's taking a lot of heat up here. And I don't want to say I feel sorry for the guy, because I don't.
No, I don't feel sorry for any coach.
But really. You're right. But
you know what I mean?
Do you think he deserves all this criticism for not beating Michigan?
I do not.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it, 2 out of the games were in Michigan.
Yeah.
So, we can fire up the criticism, for last year, I suppose, because it was at home. But Ohio State dominated that series, and it was starting to become where this wasn't a rivalry, because you can't have a rivalry where teams like are winning 6 straight or whatever. So Michigan has come back. They've seized, some momentum back to their side. And so Ohio State just, and they've been close games. It wasn't like it was 45-10 or any of that. So, and I think I saw a stat. Ryan Day's lost 6 games or something crazy, and 3 of them were to Michigan. What more could you, besides beating Michigan? What more do you want out of the guy?
This is a lot like dating myself back to the 70s with Woody and Bo, and back when it was the Big 2 and the Little 8, and it's amazing that he does get the criticism, but that's how rabid they are down there. And
you take the job knowing that.
Yeah, 100%.
Going in.
100%.
So, you probably have to wear some asbestos pants or something, because the seat's going to be warm.
Oh boy.
At some point.
Yeah.
Because if some of the best coaches ever couldn't hold on to that job for, forever.
Right.
You're not going to do it either.
Right. So this past Saturday, besides Michigan and Ohio State, or past weekend, Alabama, Florida State, Oklahoma State, Washington survived, nail biters, knuckle busters, whatever you want to call it. That Alabama game, Kevin, finish was amazing. If you'd have told me that Auburn, after losing to New Mexico State or New Mexico, whatever, there
it is right there.
There you go. That's right.
State. We'll talk about that in a minute, but
they blew Auburn out. No, let's talk about it right now.
They blew the doors,
and then
they
Auburn
did, and paid them $1.85 million to do so.
Isn't that great? So,
yes, it's awesome. And as I mentioned to you before we got on the air, my wife is an alumni. Yeah. I'm not sure what the right word for that is, but
alumnus will work. Let's do it.
Alumnus, okay. From New Mexico State. She grew up in that area. We have been to that campus. We have been to some games over there. And so, let's face it, their football team has not been, a shining star of late. But, last couple of years, they've actually made bowl games. But this year, they've won 10 games.
Huh?
And so they went in, like I said, they went into Auburn. They blew their doors completely off from beginning to end, 31-10.
Unbelievable.
1 week before Alabama has to throw a last heave into the end zone to beat them. So I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for Alabama saying, "Oh, we need to be in the playoff and we beat Georgia." No, you do not.
No,
that's the way I look at it. You had to have a 4th down pass to beat a team that got beat 31-10 1 week earlier. by New Mexico State at home. So
Yeah.
that's why
Agreed.
I'm kind of looking at it there.
Agreed. And, I look at, well, let's get into the conference. Let's get into the rankings right now real quick before we
Okay.
go into the conference championship games. We've got right now, obviously, Georgia's 1, Michigan's 2, Washington 3, Florida State 4. Then you got Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, and Alabama. Those are the 8 that, have a shot. I tend to agree with you with Alabama. I don't think even if they beat Georgia, they deserve to be in, because I can't see if Texas beats Oklahoma State. I don't
Which they will.
I don't see how Alabama can jump them. But here's my question to you.
Since they lost at home, if they lost in Texas, maybe we could make that argument. But
Right
they
on.
did not.
So here's the question that's been bandied back and forth, on national media and whatnot. And you've got a Florida State team right now is number 4. Obviously, Travis is out at quarterback. They're definitely not the best. I don't think they're one of the best 4 teams right now. But there's such I don't know. It's kind of hypocritical. They say they want the best teams in there, but then they say the most deserving. Would you keep Florida State in even if they win this weekend against Louisville?
Well, it's unfortunate for Florida State that Louisville lost to Kentucky.
Yeah.
So that took a little of the steam out of that. But even so, if Florida State beats Louisville, which I assume I think they will.
Okay.
And then they're unbeaten in a Power 5 conference. They deserve to be there.
All right.
That's been my stated position. And so what more, because they've got a more impressive, even in with the ACC and all that, they've got an impressive resume to me. And, that was all with the quarterback, but they survived. They went to the swamp. Florida's not that great, but still they're Florida. And they won the game.
So, and they also beat LSU.
They beat LSU
and they beat Clemson
in LSU.
Yep.
And they beat Clemson in Clemson. Clemson didn't have that great a year this year, but they still finished 8-4.
Right.
And they beat them in Clemson, which is never easy to do. And so, they answered the bell. And like I said, it's too bad Louisville pulled, El Foldo against Kentucky. Because if they only had one loss, if they beat a one-loss Louisville team, you couldn't say a whole lot about it. Now that they've got 2 losses, both their losses are pretty bad.
Yeah.
Louisville, I mean.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I know 3 teams that are hoping that Florida State gets in, and that's Michigan, Georgia, and whoever wins the Washington Oregon game, because there's never a layup. We saw that last weekend with Auburn and Alabama.
Right.
But it would be a lot easier.
That's why you actually play the games.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
amen, brother. I hear you.
I just threw a bunch of snow at Alabama, but it's it's a rivalry game. Some people would argue that Alabama and Auburn's the number 1 rivalry in football. I would not subscribe to that, but it's high up on the list.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And
you got people a few years back, remember, that were poisoning trees and everything else going on over there because the rabid fan bases and everything else. But so
exactly.
But they won. You can say the same thing about Washington State, the Apple Cup.
Oh boy, yeah. Yeah.
I guess if you're from Washington, apples are important. And
that's so up there, I guess, just like
so that doesn't have the same bite though as the Civil War between Oregon and Oregon State, or the Holy War between BYU and Utah. But they won. So so there they are.
All right, let's get some predictions from you here.
Okay.
Let's start with the Friday night game. Washington and Oregon for the Pac-12 Conference Championship, the last one ever, as we know it.
And if the Pac-12 was as good in a couple years back as they are now, they would not be El Foldo, I don't think. Because who would want to get rid of all, Oregon, Washington, USC, even Oregon State? You got Utah, and
it's mind-boggling to me, Kevin, that they could not. Let's face it, the main reason that a lot of these schools have left is because of money. The TV deals, the Big Ten network, which was the standard bearer, they started with these conference networks, and they're reeling in the cash. I find it mind-boggling that you've got the number 2 market in the world or the country in LA. You can't get media money out of there. You got USC, UCLA, Stanford, and Cal up the road. Oregon and Washington in Phil Knight country. That Pac-12 commissioner couldn't put a deal together.
You talk about a dude that needed to be shown the door.
Oh my God!
And don't let it hit you on the way out.
Yeah.
He ranks. You talk about all these coaches that deserve to be fired. He should have been thrown and had people covering him up as he left.
Yeah,
with dirt, because he was awful. You can't, like you mentioned, LA has number 2 market in all the world, and you can't sell rights to somebody.
I'm it's too bad. It really is. But getting back to the game,
yes,
Oregon's a 9.5-point favorite.
Is that a mind blower to you? That the number 3 team in the country is a 9.5-point underdog to anybody.
And I know Oregon's hot, Bo Nix and you got Bo Nix, and against my preseason Heisman favorite, who I don't think is going to win it, I put a few shackles on Michael Penix. That's going to be a track meet. The over-under on it is 66.
Compared that to the over-under on Michigan and Iowa.
We'll get to that game because
it's
as
like
low as that is,
higher.
I've got my lock of the week. I'll give you that bet a little later. But
okay,
66 over-under 9.5. I'm taking Washington in the points.
I'll take Washington the points big time, because when they played last time, it was a 3-point game.
Yeah,
and it came just below that 66.
Right.
That 66 is really high. I'd probably take the under.
Yeah, I'm not touching that one,
especially because it's not it's not in Washington, it's not in Oregon, it's in neutral territory, and so I think a track meet will ensue, but 66 is a lot of points to me.
Certainly is. I don't like to bet points when it gets over 60. I'd stay away. So, but I think we're in agreement on that. Saturday, we've got the Big 12 championship game, Texas and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, I can't believe they struggled as much as they did with BYU in that game. But
and I'm from Utah originally, and I could not believe, because BYU the week before that handled pretty much Oklahoma. At home. So they handled Oklahoma. Oklahoma State didn't win either one of them.
Isn't that funny?
But they didn't show out against either one of them. And, Oklahoma State has the leading rusher in all the land. But that's all to me that they have got going for them. And you talk about locks of the week, Texas -15, take it.
Okay.
And run.
That's Kevin's lock of the week. I love it. 15 points is the spread. The over-under is 55.
It's a lot of points. It's a lot of points. But
hey.
And Texas is going to know by the time they take the field what do they need to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because some of these games that happened earlier, and if Washington, let's say Oregon wins that game.
Yeah.
Washington's out. Oregon's in, and they could move up. They're going to know what they're going to see, because they put a smackdown on Texas Tech in that last game.
Yeah.
And I think that we're looking at the same thing, because they probably thought they was going to be playing Oklahoma, probably wanted to play Oklahoma because they lost.
Yeah.
But that's not what happened. And And so Texas, take them.
Yeah, I'll have to. I'm all about Texas. 15 points is a lot, but I got a feeling that they might be able to cover that one at a neutral site.
Yeah,
I
which is just up the road from where I live now.
Yeah.
And so, Texas is pretty much taken over. Well, they take over anyways, but
Right.
everyone around here is Texas, 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 Texas right now.
I just, at the beginning of the year, I wasn't as sold on Texas. I'm not a Steve Sarkisian fan. I think he's one of the most overrated coaches in the country.
Texas
But
seems to find them
he's 11-1.
Texas, the state in general, but Texas,
Yeah.
specifically. So I'm not big on him either.
But he's proven himself. If they wins this year, if they get into the playoff, then I got to ease off on him a little bit, because to me, the two most overrated coaches in college football are Steve Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin. And Lane Kiffin's got a big mouth, and he's never won a conference conference at all.
No, and he's not going to win one.
No, not at Ole Miss.
And remember when he was at USC, they left him at the airport.
Yeah. Well, he rode his dad's coattails to get in.
Yeah. You can only do that for so long, then you have to step up and take accountability. But
agree.
And we're kind of getting off the point.
Right
here,
on.
but,
it's easy for me to do. So
so if Texas, because they're going to be in the SEC, and they're going to find out what Texas A&M already know.
Yeah.
If they can't handle Oklahoma State, they can cancel Christmas when they have to move to the SEC. That's all I'll say about that.
Right on to that. Yeah, they're going to be in for a rude awakening
I think so.
Year.
All that money they get from their Texas Longhorn Network or whatever else, it's not going to help them.
I yearn for the days of the old Southwest Conference with them and Arkansas and A&M and all that.
Yeah.
TCU and whatever. Yeah. ACC championship game. It's weird not to see Clemson in it. Florida State, Louisville. Florida State's a 2.5-point favorite. I got to tell you, I'm taking the upset on this one, Kevin. I think Louisville's going to beat them. I was not impressed with Florida State. Florida's play calling in the second half of that game, mine was just baffled me. Rodemaker to me is I don't have faith in Florida State at a neutral site. If it was home, I'd say okay. But I think they play that in Charlotte, don't they?
I believe so.
And
at Bank of America Stadium, in Carolina.
Yeah.
And so I'm with you on that.
I'm going with Louisville plus the 2.5, and I could see it going under 47.5. I just don't. I know they've got Keon Coleman next.
I can.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you have to wonder. You mentioned the quarterback comes in and he got leveled.
Yeah. Oh, did he ever?
And that towards the end, and, he got leveled.
Oh boy, did he ever!
A few players I've seen before, but it looks like I guess he's okay.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna, Florida State. I would rather gouge out my eyes and say anything positive about Florida State.
Fair enough.
And I'm not going to get too positive here, but I think they can beat Louisville.
Okay.
Because Louisville has not been impressive. When they lost to Pittsburgh, what's up with that? And then they lose to Kentucky at home.
Yeah.
When although because they were 10th in the country at the time. They win that game. Who knows where they wind up being ranked. But they lost.
Yeah, the committee did their best to prop Louisville up to make this Florida State matchup look even better, but unfortunately it blew up.
Right. It blew up in everybody's faces.
Yes, it did.
And I think Florida State takes this game. They, take it late.
Yeah.
And
okay.
And they advance.
I think Louisville's going to win 24-21, but that's the first one we disagree on.
There's no lot going on right there in that game.
No. SEC championship game. We got Alabama and Georgia, two heavyweights. The glamour game. Georgia's a 5.5-point favorite. Well, at least they were this afternoon when I put this together. And
I can tell you that they're 6.5. from what I have now.
Okay. Well, I would lay the points and take Georgia.
I would too. 5.5, 6.5, 7.
Yeah.
I'm taking Georgia, and because they're not going to take Alabama lightly. They're never going to do that, and so I think that even though they're the 2-time defending champions, Alabama's still kind of lurking in the back of their mind.
Yeah,
and they want to put it on Al. I think they will, and they're going to win this game by more than 5.5 or 6.5.
I love chaos.
I'd almost give it my lock, but I already did that.
No, I mean, you could change your mind. The show's not over yet.
No, I'm going to stay with what I had originally. But Georgia, you got to favor them. They haven't lost in 2 years now, 2.5, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So some of them games have been close for Georgia, but this is not going to be one of them.
No, I got a feeling it's going to be a 30. I'm going to go with a 38-24 game, so I may take the over on that one. So, lastly,
54.5, I could take the over on that.
Yeah, I could see it going over. I like Georgia's offense. I think Carson Beck is starting to play much better, and they've got the weapons, and they're just so strong in the interior. And I think that it's going to be a great game to watch.
Yep, and let's not forget the tight end of all tight ends.
Yeah,
and Brock Bowers. So.
Brock Bowers is who could be a top 5 pick in the draft.
He could be,
year.
And he probably
I don't know, but
he deserves to be a top 5
yes,
pick.
he's got the talent. Absolutely, Kevin. Absolutely.
Yeah, and he's left he had some health issues before, but he's left that behind now.
Yeah.
And so how do you handle all those weapons that Georgia has?
They don't. They just reload. It's
reload and rearm and just take them down.
They're the best They're the best for a reason, and I think they're going to outlast Alabama. Finally, Saturday night in Indianapolis, we got the Big Ten championship game, Michigan and Iowa. Michigan's a 22-point favorite.
That tells you all you need to know about the Big Ten West.
Yeah, isn't it something?
That Iowa,
who
hasn't scored more than 22 points the entire season.
Yeah,
think about that. We've got all these teams that some of them have scored more than 30 in every single game. Iowa hasn't scored more than 22 in any game this year. They struggled to beat Illinois. They struggled to beat Nebraska. Those are not two barn burner teams.
They struggled to beat everybody.
And you got to like their defense, but they don't have nearly enough offense to do anything against that Michigan team.
They struggled to beat Michigan State earlier in the year. Obviously they don't have Cade McNamara.
Yeah, Michigan State was a mess.
Yeah. But with all this being said, my lock of the weekend, believe it or not, the over/under for first half points for Iowa is 0.5 point. I'm taking the over because I think Michigan tends to give up a field goal or a touchdown in the first half, just every game, and then they clamp up. I could see Iowa kicking a field goal in the first half.
Right.
And so I'm taking the over on 0.5 point in the first half for Iowa. That's my lock.
That's an indictment right there against this whole system.
Have you ever heard of something like that before?
No. I mentioned Dale earlier. I was talking to him, and he was like, "Well, how's Iowa in the Big Ten championship?" Well, that's because the Big Ten West is awful.
Well, this is the last
Wisconsin,
year for it.
Awful. Minnesota, awful.
Oh,
right. Illinois, awful. Nebraska, awful.
Yeah.
The Northwestern, they turn things around, from their scandal.
Yeah.
But no one's breaking anybody's doors down except for Michael Wilbon from Pardon the Interruption.
Right.
Besides him, no one's beating the doors down to watch Northwestern football.
I agree. Yeah. So I got a feeling I'm taking Michigan in the points. I'm gonna lay the 22, but my lock is the 0.5 point for Iowa. Over half a point in the first half. I heard that.
All the investigation that I did for, to come on this show, I did not see that it was a half a point.
I heard it on Dan Patrick this morning when I was on the job. And so I got home and I looked at DraftKings, and yes, it's a half a point, and they're over under for the second half. Second half scoring is 2.5. But yet, it's it's gonna. I just had to laugh. That was too good to pass up. So
yeah, that put that and put it in red marker right there, and I think Michigan puts enough points on the board to make this to go over 35 total points.
I think it could, but I'm not touching it.
I wouldn't touch it either.
I could see a 31-3 game.
I would not put any money on either of these, to be honest with you, the 22 or the 35.
Yeah, I get it. So getting back to the rankings, so you and I are pretty much in agreement, except on Florida State. Washington, I could see them losing, but covering.
I do. That first game showed the quality of both these teams, and Oregon just barely lost at Washington. So if Oregon wins this game, you can color them. They're in. So,
all right, I'm going to throw a couple of scenarios at you here before we jump over the NFL real quick. We got a few minutes there. Let's say Georgia wins.
Okay, they're in, obviously.
Michigan wins, they're in. So you got Washington losing to Oregon.
Okay.
And you've got Florida State losing to Louisville.
Okay.
Would you take – so Georgia would beat Alabama, so they've got 2 losses. You don't have to worry about them.
Right.
So you would have a 1-loss Florida State team, a 1-loss Oregon, and a 1-loss Washington, and then a 1-loss Texas and a 1-loss Ohio State. Would there be any scenario?
You might need to take a couple aspirin before you start trying to.
Could you see it? Let me ask you this. Could you see a scenario if that happened where they would take 2 Pac-12 teams over Texas and Ohio State?
They possibly could do that. And that would be fine with me if they did, actually.
I think it would be cool as all get out, but and
the Pac-12 can thumb their nose at the SEC one last time. Hey, look, we've got 2 teams in, and so but you shake this around, anything could happen. Let's say Florida State, as I predicted, does win.
Yeah.
Then Oregon jumps them in the 3rd place.
Yeah.
In the playoff rankings. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Even though Florida State's unbeaten in that scenario, Oregon jumps them, I think.
So let me give you one more scenario, and it was brought up on another on the 4-letter network. I don't know if it was this morning or whatever. I saw.
Okay, we won't mention that. Okay, yeah,
right.
Yeah, we won't mention that.
Let's say Alabama beats Georgia, Michigan wins, so Michigan would be in. Washington wins, so they're in. And Florida State wins.
So they're in.
That's 3. Let's say Texas wins. Texas beats Alabama. Could you see a scenario where neither Georgia or Alabama would be in with their one?
That is something, as you mentioned, has been kicked around all day long. And I personally cannot see Georgia unless Alabama puts it on them, which I don't think that's a scenario we can put a whole lot of stock in that.
Yeah.
But if let's say Alabama just barely beats them, then I could see possibly in Florida, let's say Florida State loses, so they're out of it. And so I could see Georgia falling to the number 4 spot, even though they lost Alabama, and being in. And I don't see any kind of, unless we have absolute chaos, Alabama's not getting in.
Okay. I don't think so either. My nightmare scenario, to be honest with you, is Georgia falling to 4 and Michigan getting to 1 and having those 2 teams play each other in the opening round.
I think that they would prefer to avoid that matchup.
Me too. And I don't think it'll happen.
I don't think so either.
I think Georgia would fall to 3 and play, whoever. But there's so many scenarios, with this last year, the 14 playoff. It's,
Yeah, because next year,
yeah,
you wouldn't have to have alcohol in the room, right?
Just for that 13th team, right? So.
Right. The 13th team. We'll send you some, a box of Pringles or something.
There you go.
And you know what I mean? 'Cause if you're number 13, you can't argue. You're number 13. You're what, 9-3 or something? You have no arguments. So,
well, we'll keep an eye on that Sunday when Selection Sunday comes down. It's going to be fun. But here's the thing, Kevin, real quick, then we'll hit the pros for about 10 minutes. Is it always seems to figure itself out. We like to speculate like we're doing right now, but it always seems to be almost not really chalk, but pretty damn close every year. And I honestly think it's going to be chalk. The only thing that could throw a wrench into it maybe is if Florida State does lose, which, I think it's 50-50.
Yeah, that's not that wild a scenario.
But I think you could see.
Neither of us think that if the Florida State still had the quarterback, then they're a complete team. They're not.
Yeah.
And I think that they're going to do enough to stay where they are. And maybe they'll fall to 4 if they win. And like I said, Oregon wins. I think they jump them, even though Florida State would be unbeaten. All
right, let's switch over to the pros.
Before we move to the NFL, I have to mention, though, Friday, and we talked about New Mexico State a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
The Conference USA Championship game Friday between New Mexico State and unbeaten Liberty.
Ooh, there you go.
Okay, and so New Mexico State's 10 wins. Liberty, as I mentioned, is unbeaten.
Yeah.
And so
huge
I expect a barn burner of a game there. And we in this household would be more interested probably in that game than any other of these other games we just got done talking about.
Awesome.
So
that's fun. That's awesome.
We'll be very interested in that. Pistol Pete, we've met him, the mascot from New Mexico State. So we're very familiar with that school. So we're looking forward to that game.
It's funny is I've been on the Liberty campus and I've been on their football field.
I actually had to look to see where I've heard of them, of course.
Yeah.
But I didn't know where Liberty is.
It's funny is I do a lot of hockey broadcasting for the ACHA, and Liberty has got a facility that is, for a club hockey scenario, they've got a 4,000 seat rink. And, back when I toured the football stadium, it was back before they got good, but their facilities are amazing. And for a smaller sized, a group of 5 conference, well, yeah. And, it's amazing, but that's going to be a good game. That's an interesting game. Good luck to
it's going to be good.
You guys Friday night.
And if Liberty, we're not going to, we're not saying that out loud. Okay. But if Liberty, let's say they did win because they're undefeated.
Yeah.
And Tulane is ahead of them. And Tulane loses SMU. Liberty is then the non-power 5.
Yeah.
Bowl
game. Yeah, that's right. All right. NFL week 13, real quickly. We got the big game Sunday at 4:25 is Philly and San Francisco. A lot of people saying it's a preview for the NFC title game. Us Lion fans are hoping not, because this is uncharted territory for us.
Right.
But man, that's gonna be a spotlight game there. I can see San Francisco going into Philly and winning.
I do too.
But it's gonna be a dandy game. I don't know what the line is on it, but last I heard San Francisco was a 2.5 point favorite, I believe.
I can tell you that information. And and I'm a Seahawk fan.
Okay.
Unfortunately. And so speaking, nice about the 49ers. Like I said, I'd rather ram my head into a cement mixer.
Yeah. It's like me in Green Bay. I get it.
And so let's see here. The line now is 49ers -3. Over under is 47.5.
Boy, that's tempting to take Philly with 3 points, man. That's getting 3. So that's going to be a fun game to watch. Brock Purdy's got so many weapons, and I know
He does, and all that talk about how Brock Purdy and hand wringing and everything else, and he's answered the bell.
Yeah. I agree.
So if you're a San Francisco guy, I don't know why you'd want to be one of those, but if you were, you have to feel pretty good because Philadelphia, that's going to come home and bite them because they've won these games so close.
Yeah.
Some people say, well, they know how to win, which, okay, I can buy that. But at some point, like Minnesota last year, won all those close games. But then this year, it hasn't happened. So at some point, those things start to change. And this game, I think, is going to be one of those games.
Yeah, could very well be. Who's your best team who do you think is the best team in the AFC right now?
Well, I don't think it's Miami because their defense is not as good as it should be for to me a championship team. Kansas City, they're going to have to show me, because they did it against the Raiders, but nothing, impressive about beating them. But they went 3 straight games without scoring in the second half. That's mind-boggling to me. And so they're going to have to show me that they are the Kansas City Chiefs of old. Their wide receiver core is sorry, other than the tight end, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm going to say Baltimore is the standard over there in the AFC. Boy, and they're going to have the hardest way to get there, though, because every team except Cincinnati has a winning record in that division.
Yeah, I think you can count out Cincinnati without Burrow.
Yeah, they're done.
Pittsburgh, I don't know how the hell they're doing it, but Baltimore to me is such a complete team. And I know that they've had some hiccups, but just about every team has this year, except for maybe Philadelphia with only 1 loss. But
the Jets of all teams, so you just never know.
Yeah. What about CJ Stroud? Can Houston ride him to the playoffs this year?
Can they? Yes. Ride him. Will they? I don't think they will. I think we saw this past with Jacksonville went in there and they had something to prove because they lost earlier in the season at home. But Jacksonville went in there. Trevor Lawrence showed, hey, I know he's the quarterback everybody's clapping about, but don't forget about me.
Yeah.
So Jacksonville's obviously still the team to beat in that division. And Indianapolis is better than anybody thought.
Yeah, they are.
And Jacksonville's thing, I don't think they can do that.
Okay.
So
I
don't think they can grab the number 1 seed.
All right.
The only way that Jacksonville could possibly be a serious contender is if that is in fact what does happen.
Okay.
But I don't see it.
What about my Lions? Boy, they had a clunker against Green Bay. I think, I love the Lions, obviously. It's but I think their defensive backs again got exposed. The pass rush was non-existent, obviously, against Green Bay. They made Love look good, but
they sure did. And it would be nice because in one of my fantasy leagues, Jordan Love. Well, I've got him in 3 in my fantasy league.
Okay.
I like Jordan Love, and more than a lot of people, but I had him. You had to make a decision. Am I going to start Jordan Love against Detroit? I said no. And then he went out and blew the doors off. So,
I know. I didn't see that coming.
I did not either. And as I was on the Sunday show that you mentioned earlier, I was talking to Chase about that. The game wasn't as close as that final score suggested that it was.
No, it wasn't.
And so Detroit kind of, because I want to get into the hype, because this is a cat household right here. So Lions fall right into that. And we all know that the sorry history that the Lions have, and last time that we've seen them, they got blown out by Washington way back in
I
90,
remember 91.
92, 91. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you want to get behind Detroit. You want to like Detroit. They've got a likable team. They got a likable coach.
Yeah.
And so, but they're going to have to wash that out of their mouths in a hurry because they got to go to New Orleans now.
Yeah.
And New Orleans is not that good. They're good defensively, but they're not that good a team.
Yeah, they're a desperate team, New Orleans is, but they're depleted.
They are.
They're depleted right now on the offensive side of the ball.
Right.
I think their top three receivers may not play, which, will help Detroit. Detroit seem to do pretty decently on the road, and it's indoors. So I kind of like that. Well, Kevin, we got to wrap it up here tonight.
Okay.
But what I want to do is I want to give you a chance. Tell us what you got going on with the network.
Okay, so you can always find me over on the Belly Up Fantasy side of the website. And I just had an article, this morning was the waiver pickups. So if you didn't do that, you've missed the boat. But I have an article of waiver pickups. As I talked about, there are 6 teams on bye this week, which is really hamstringing a lot of teams' rosters. So you're going to want to, if you still looking to make a pickup, go check that out on the Belly Up Fantasy website. And of course, you can watch Chase and I on the Belly Up Fantasy Live football show at 10 o'clock Central Time. I know it's 11 o'clock Eastern, where apparently time began. Okay. But so I'm over there. Chase is over there. So you can check us out there. And my Twitter is Kevin62, WILSEA. You can always throw me something over there, start, sit, whatever it might be. You can catch me on, or X, whatever the heck we're doing over there now.
Right on.
That's where I am.
Well, I know you and Chase do a fantastic job. It's always a treat to watch you guys, and
I appreciate that.
Try to check it out every Sunday for a little bit. So, Kevin, thanks for taking time out tonight to be with us. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's a pleasure, Lou, and anytime you need something, just let me know and I'll come running.
All right, thanks again. All right, that's Kevin Wilson joining us here. Again, catch him on Fantasy Live on Sundays, and check out his fantasy work on the on bellyupsports.com. He does great work with the articles. It's very informative, and you will indeed get everything that you need to know for fantasy football. Playoffs are coming up around the corner. For those of you that have a good shot at making the playoffs, or if you're like me, you just want to win a couple of weeks left in your regular season to make a little bit of cash. Want to close it out tonight, talking a little bit locally here about what's happening in East Lansing. We talked about it last week. Michigan State made it official over the weekend. They hired Oregon State head coach Jonathan Smith to a 7-year deal, $7.5 million per. It's a big splash hire for Michigan State. I give credit to Alan Haller for being able to get it done. I wasn't sure with all the turmoil that's going on here in East Lansing with the presidential search and the board of trustees and all of that. Definitely was behind the 8 ball on that. I give him credit. I didn't know if they were going to give him the leeway and the latitude to make that kind of a hire. It sounds like Jonathan Smith might be a pretty good hire for Michigan State. He's got his work cut out for him. 13 at last count have entered the portal out of Michigan State. Not surprised. I don't think they've got a scholarship quarterback on the roster, but as much as the transfer portal taketh, it will also giveth to you. And I just want to take one more minute to think that I got to tell you, I think $7.5 million a year is going to turn out to be a bargain for Jonathan Smith. And I say that because I look back at what happened here at Michigan State with Mel Tucker. He struck gold with Kenneth Walker and out of the transfer portal, and also got a big break when J.J. McCarthy fumbled the football on his only possession that he was in that game in 2021 against Michigan. Because it's a lot easier now. I know he's got a big reclamation project ahead of him in East Lansing. But if you're smart and you can work the portal, you can turn that into a good record. I think in 2 years, he could turn it around. If Mel Tucker could do it with a losing record coming from Colorado, I think Jonathan Smith can do it. And I think the folks at Michigan State are going to look back and wish that they could keep him at 7.5 per, because I got a feeling it's going to be a turnaround for Oregon State. Now, the one drawback with that is that we've got a new Big Ten next year. We've got Oregon. We've got USC, UCLA, Washington coming in. The schedule is going to be enormous. And yes, there's no more divisions. But I still think Jonathan Smith can turn it around in East Lansing. And I can predict that within 2 to 3 years, he's going to renegotiate that contract. He's going to be making $12 to $13 million a year, or else someone's going to snag him. So enjoy the $7.5 million per year, Spartan fans, that you're going to get with Jonathan Smith. I think it's a bargain for what they're paying college coaches. He's young, he's energetic, and I think he's going to do great in East Lansing. As a Michigan fan, I'm worried because we won't be able to push them around like they have been the last couple of years. So, again, congratulations to Michigan State for the hire of Jonathan Smith from Oregon State. All right, that's going to do it tonight. I want to thank Kevin Wilson again for joining us here on the show. It's been fun, always fun chatting with him. Great information on the games. Remember, his lock of the week is if I remember right, is Texas laying the 15 against Oklahoma State. My lock of the week is Iowa scoring over 0.5 point in the first half of the Iowa-Michigan Big Ten championship game. Hey, enjoy the football. I'm going to be off next week. I'm taking a little vacation. We're going down to Arizona to visit some family. I'm going to take in a Washington Capitals Arizona Coyotes game on Monday night in the Arizona State College facility. Should be a lot of fun. We'll be back in 2 weeks, Tuesday night, with an ACHA Power Play. It's going to be loaded. We're going to have a lot of great guests on there. Check out our website, or check out our site on Facebook, Captain Lou Extravaganza. Drop me a line on email, sweetlou1965@yahoo.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Captain Lou Sports Network. But we're going to have a great show at the ACHA Power Play on Tuesday night in 2 weeks. And then on Wednesday, we'll be back with another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. For Kevin Wilson, yours truly, Captain Lou, saying so long. Keep your heads up. Keep your sticks down. Keep your feet moving. And as always, keep your minds open. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the football. And we'll see you soon here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza here on the Captain Lou Sports Network on YouTube, powered up by Belly Up Sports. So long, everybody.